What's going on, guys? Hopefully you're having a good Friday today. It's been pretty good so far, I think, and we actually got a new rumor slash information that has come out here, and this was actually an article put up on Nintendo World Report by Emily Rogers, and it seems to detail Nintendo's plans to enter the VR world, or the world of VR, this year, as in they would be doing something VR related at some point this year, which, I mean, they'd probably want to be ready for the holidays if they have an idea. They would have to have some kind of accessory ready, obviously, and it's kind of interesting. Now, before we keep going, guys, if you enjoy these videos, rumor waves and everything, make sure you hit that like button, help out. Let's take a look here. So this was written by Emily Rogers, and it says, Nintendo World Report believes that Nintendo could make its first VR-related announcement as early as this year, according to multiple sources. And we also believe that a small select number of traditional first-party software titles may receive VR support in the not-so-distant future. So it might surprise some people to hear that there would be something VR-related with the Switch. Now, of course, the screen itself would be considered a lower resolution for VR at 720 because you would technically cut that in half to give each eye kind of its own screen, and you would essentially overlay them and everything to make it appear like it's 3D. We've seen other devices do this with phones, for example, with varying results based on their resolution. So it's not exactly impossible to think that the Switch could do it. And Nintendo entering the VR market would help that market. VR could use help. I mean, it got help in the form of Sony with the PlayStation VR, which is at this time the best-selling VR headset by like a mile, by like a lot. I think they've sold over 3 million PlayStation VR headsets, and the PlayStation VR has a bit of an issue with its point of entry. Getting into it is kind of tough, considering for a while there it was fairly expensive. It was like $400 to get into it when it first released. Since then, it's come down in price. I mean, we were at a point like over Black Friday time where you'd be able to find a bundle for $200 to $250, and then, of course, you need the system. And while I don't think the Switch is going to get around that, you still will, of course, need the Switch. I think Nintendo can do this in a way that will make it much easier for people to try out VR. Now, the way that I think they can do this, and they outline it here, good read here by Emily Rogers. I'll leave a link down in the description. You can go check out and read through the article as well. We remember this, we talked about this a long time ago on the channel. Do you remember the head-mounted display patent that was shown here? It's basically this little, the VR box that you strap to your face, and then you put the Switch itself into it. That is basically how a lot of us picture this working. In fact, it's so much so that Nintendo actually took a shot at it in a video. See if you can see that there, where he actually tried it out in a headset that just happened to fit the Switch. And he used YouTube's, at the time, you had to kind of go through an app, or you had to go through like the back, through like the Facebook plugin and stuff to get there. But he actually activated YouTube's kind of like 3D setup for these kind of glasses, and he managed to make it work. And interesting results. I would check that video. That's also down below if you're just curious about the performance of that and how it ended up looking. Does a very good job in that video showing it off to you. So the headset idea itself is possible. In fact, that's likely. I think that's how they would do it. And let me show you some examples of how this could help VR and how it would be easier for people to get in. So you already have your Switch. If this headset is cheap enough, like it has to be way cheaper than the PlayStation VR. And of course, if it's easier to set up, the reason a lot of these companies like Oculus, for example, and even Vive, they're working on like their standalone setups where you don't need to plug anything in. The headset's all inclusive, is because when you start getting into plugging in all these cables and everything, it becomes an issue. That's pretty much the PlayStation VR's biggest weakness, is its setup. Same with a lot of VR headsets. The Vive has an entire tethering system that you would hook up. It's a whole thing just to get this going. So you're not going to do that when you get home and you're tired from work, or you don't feel like setting all this stuff up, or you don't even have enough room in your house or your apartment to have this big thing going on where you're playing the Vive and you need like a large space to move around. This would be something that would be set up, and most likely easier to use just on a whim, just like, oh, I want to play VR. And the way they can do that is a couple ways. The cheapest option that most people probably know are those head-mounted plastic setups. For example, Google Cardboard. It's very cheap. It's $15 if you want to buy it now, straight up. And yes, it's basically something you build out of cardboard. It's not fancy. It's not meant to be, and it basically just has these little plastic glasses things there, and then you put your phone on the other side after you fold all this up, and boom, you have a headset that is $15. I remember at one point there was like a rebate and everything, and get it for like $5, and that was just Google just being Google, you know, when it's shipping you cardboard, you fold it up, and boom, there you go, you got a headset. I guess Nintendo technically could do something like that, as they're already doing cardboard and selling cardboard, but that was the cheaper route that they went. I would prefer Nintendo a little more, right? I would say, let's at least make the headset plastic and at least feel a little better when it comes to setup. This is actually another example of virtual reality 3D headset. It's even comes with a little Bluetooth controller. It's probably a bit cheaper. Again, it's not like a high quality item, but it's $20. And I know Nintendo's not going to sell it for $20. It will have the Nintendo logo on it, most likely. It might even be branded, you know, red and black. Maybe it'll be the Virtual Boy. Oh, man, what if they did something like that? What if they went back and said, oh, we're reviving the Virtual Boy, but it's just a little headset that the Switch goes into? That would be funny. You know, I would buy it for that. But this is basically a plastic display, as you can see there, that your phone just sets into. You may have seen one of these. You may have bought one of these for fun because it was like $20 just to see what it's like with your phone in there. And then you have the more expensive ones like the Galaxy or the Gear VR that comes with a little controller like that. And the idea here again is that your phone sits in there in the front, and then it splits the display up into two, and then you get kind of this 3D VR headset image. Now, of course, you need the device to be able to also do that, and the Switch has a hard time with some third-party games, obviously, when it comes to resolution and everything, but their first-party offerings are pretty good when it comes to that. Like Mario Odyssey is a 60 frames per second game that runs at a good enough resolution where it looks good on your TV and everything. It's fine. Mario Kart, 60 frames per second, 1080p, that's good as well. Now, remember in that article that we just talked about, they mention select first-party titles. When I think of first-party titles for Nintendo, the easiest one for any of these VR games are ones you don't have to move around yourself, right? Like when I played PlayStation VR heavily, it was mostly because of Wipeout. Wipeout is a great instance for VR. Ace Combat's actually pretty good. I finally broke it out and tried it out. It's pretty good. Then we had Gran Turismo, which is there wasn't a lot there, but it was still interesting enough to try it out, and it was good. Any of those where you sit in a car seat or a cockpit for like Ace Combat, it works. It works better because you can turn your head and you can look around, and that's the best way to do it. So I looked at their first party offerings. I would say something like, they don't have this F-Zero yet, but something like a Mario Kart would probably be your best bet, your best instance, especially if they made it so that you put the Switch in the headset and then you can use the Joy-Con maybe to steer and press obviously A or whatever to go. That might be the best one, and I'm trying to think of any other games that would work. Like Splatoon at first person, maybe, I don't know. That one might be interesting to see. It at least runs at a high frame rate, so they might be able to get away with it. And that's something else we run into is usually VR games need a higher frame rate to keep you from getting motion sick, for example, or just a steady frame rate. And then, of course, resolution, screen door effect. There's a lot of stuff going on here, but I think if it's cheap enough, okay, that's the biggest thing. Cost is the biggest thing here. If it's cheap enough, I think Nintendo would build a compelling case with some of their first-party software to get people into VR. And the idea with VR is it needs that bottom end, that lower end to get people in, and then maybe look into the more expensive stuff after they've experienced it. Because getting people to try an Oculus Rift or a Vive in the middle of Best Buy does not work. People don't want to do that. There have been instances where, of course, people will get sick because of it. So they don't really feel like having that done in a public setting. And I think most people understand that. People don't want to be embarrassed or anything. But I look at this VR situation with Nintendo and them announcing something as early as this year, with it being an accessory, a head-mounted unit of some kind that your Switch goes into, would be interesting, especially if it's like $50. If it comes out and it's the cost of a game, and you get this headset that sets up the Switch. Remember, it's Nintendo; they're gonna charge more than like that $20 headset, but I would also hope that it's a bit more quality as well, and it's designed specifically for the Switch, not just a range of phones. Now, they could also add some technology to that headset so that it runs better. It'd be interesting to see that. Maybe you plug the Switch in, and then if you want, you can also plug the headset into the wall for better performance. There's a lot of things they can do there. So I'm definitely interested in the idea of VR. And you know what? I think VR could really benefit from Nintendo joining the market. And it would be interesting to see them maybe pull some of these games of their first party IPs into the world of VR. But let me know what you guys think about this situation around VR and Nintendo. Do you think it's a good idea for Nintendo to join in the world of VR? And do you think that the VR market needs Nintendo? Like, I think it needs something like Nintendo to go mainstream more than it is now. And I think it would help grow it. But let me know what you think about this situation, and which games would you like to see in VR outside of the obvious ones, like maybe a Star Fox, like maybe Starlink could have compatibility with it, even though it's third party. It still has, of course, Star Fox in it. Let me know what games you'd like to see as part of VR. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.